Good afternoon. This is Monday, February 13th, and the time is approximately 4:40 in the afternoon. We're here for a meeting of Finance Committee. My name is Tom Kendall, Chairman, and to my left is Mr. John Swazer, member of the committee. Mr. Titterington, will you please lead us off here?
Thank you. We are asking that you recommend to Council passage on an emergency basis of a resolution opposing the Governor's proposed 2018-2019 budget related to a couple of local income tax provisions that he has slipped into his request of the legislature. You might recall that in 2014 we had a prolonged battle, debate, challenge to our municipal income tax regulations, policies, rules, and ability to tax certain items. When the full provisions come into effect, we stand to lose anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million. We have already begun to project those losses in our 5-year plan as we document the unfunded mandates that the state has imparted upon us under the guise of stimulating Ohio's economy and promoting business expansion and relocation into the state of Ohio. Several of the provisions that the special interests had wanted to get into the 2014 exercise did not make it. One of those was what's called the throwback provision. That is a provision, and I'll gloss over it because the details are both mundane and over my head. But throwback provision relates to those businesses that are large distribution type facilities, where the accounting and the taxation of them currently hits when they reach the distribution center, because the business that is the distribution center is earning income in that particular community. The governor's budget would eliminate the ability to tax at that level, and instead would defer those taxes to whatever the final ending point is for those particular goods and services, which could be out of state, could be out of the country ultimately. You just don't know. That is a provision that we were successful in keeping out the last time. It was slipped into this budget. That is in spite of the fact that all of our indications and conversations with the state legislature coming into this current legislative session was that we would continue to have dialogue around the income tax simplification, uniformity, and business friendliness during this year, but certainly not towards the budget. So the fact that it got into this budget was both premature, unexpected, and frankly unacceptable. That's one provision, and I also say that as of last week, we did not have the full details of the draft legislation that the governor was submitting for his budget. That came out on, I believe, Friday, and so the Ohio Municipal League is pouring through that. Hopefully there are no other such provisions in there. This resolution would cover those, but so far throwback is one of them that's in there. The other, and certainly more egregious position that the governor has taken is to recommend to the legislature that for 2018 and beyond, businesses be required to file their net corporate profit income tax returns through a single source, that being the Ohio Business Gateway. That is controlled by the Ohio Department of Taxation. They would file it there. There would be no auditing. There would be no enforcement. There would be no checks and balances. The state, on a quarterly basis, would then return whatever revenues that they think are ours to us, net of a 1% administrative charge. That is, if you break down into pots, our income tax revenue, we have net profit returns from companies, we have employee withholding amounts, and then we have resident individual filings. So the governor is only recommending mandatory central collections, and I'm going to hammer that point home over the next year, that phrase, of that one pot. However, as we all know, that's a foot in the door, and once they try to start doing that, then they'll do it for everything else. The net profit collections, the last year that we've got complete data was 2015. The amount that we collected was approximately $6 million in those that income tax, meaning that a 1%, at best, a 1% loss would be $60,000 a year. We would continue to have our staff, because we'd have the other 2/3 that we would be collecting on a local level, and we would be auditing, and we would be enforcing with penalties. The state, frankly, adds no value to that process. The state tax commissioner claims that he has received hundreds of complaints from businesses across the state. However, he's provided no legitimate documentation of those complaints. We have not heard any complaints at all. Anytime a business calls with questions, we answer them just as quickly as we would any individual that wants to come in and talk about their taxes. As you're all aware, we do provide not only auditing but also help with tax preparation, which is something that the state will not do. It is rare, if ever, that you even talk to a human being when you call the state, and they will admit that. The Ohio Business Gateway is the central place. You can go to it online. It is a flawed system. It is in need of millions of dollars of repairs and upgrades to it, and the state admits that. And yet they want to make mandatory something that businesses can already do. If a business does not want to file individually with multiple jurisdictions, localities, they already have the right and the ability to use the Ohio Business Gateway. So there's no rational reason from a business friendliness aspect to make mandatory that they file at the state. Again, we would not only lose a minimum of 1% revenues, and I say minimum because, again, there would be no auditing function. It would be on totally a trust basis, and so there's no way for us to verify whether we are getting every dollar that they're supposed to be paying. Net, again, of that 1% that's an administrative charge that the state would hold. We would no longer receive that money, that cash flow on a daily basis, but we would get that money on a quarterly basis. And with the variety of other issues that the state has and the budget shortfalls that they're seeing, again, this foot in the door is frankly doesn't sound like it's anything more than the state trying to shore up their resources and their revenues at our expense, which is the same thing that has happened over the past 5 to 10 years with the local government fund cuts, estate tax elimination, personal property tax elimination, and again, the 2014 income tax reform that they did at our expense. So what the Ohio Municipal League has strongly recommended is that all municipalities submit resolutions protesting this. Several years ago, I think prior to 2014 now, there was a some discussion about centralizing collections. At that time, this council passed one, if not more, resolutions, I think maybe even a couple of resolutions, sending them to our state legislators, as well as the governor's office. According to OML Executive Director Kent Scarrett, that was very effective because municipalities across the state did it, and so he is recommending that we do that again, and possibly another time, and another time after that, as many times as we need to. So they are starting to discuss the budget at the State House, and so the sooner that we can get our protest filed on the record, the better.
Okay. John, do you have any questions?
Do we know where Senator Beagle and Representative Huffman are on this?
I have not talked to them specifically about it. I do know that we've heard from several other legislators. There does not appear at this point to be a lot of support for that. Having said that, though, it's early in the process, and certain influences often come to bear at the 11th hour. And so the sooner the better, and more often, and the more vocal we can be, the better chance we have.
Is the governor the one that's driving this, or?
It's his budget that it's special interests that are driving it.
Do we know what special interests?
The Ohio Chamber, the Ohio Society of CPAs, same group that really led the push on the income tax reform.
I have nothing else.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Two things. Number one, does this resolution go to the governor's office, or is this going to the legislature, the branches?
Our intent is I would ask the mayor to craft or sign 3 letters, one to Senator Beagle, one to Representative Huffman, one to the governor. Copies of those would go to the Ohio Municipal League. The Ohio Municipal League would distribute them to all legislatures across the state.
Okay. Standardized forms, do individuals and businesses, is there a standardized form throughout the state for every municipality? I mean, do we all use the same formats?
It's not exactly the same, but through the uniformity that occurred in 2014, the calculations are the same. The rules are pretty much the same. I believe they're all the same. They may look a little different, but it's one of the easiest forms to fill out. It's certainly easier than the state or the federal forms.
Well, I personally, Mr. Chair, and I would just propose that this be sent in the strongest terms. I don't believe our governor is doing locally cities like ourselves any favors because of the theft that he has done of our money that we could be using locally, and to offset his spending that he has done at the state level. And we're trying to protect his legacy in that matter. So that's my personal opinion on it, and I just think that this is wrong.
Anyone else in the audience? John? How do you feel about it?
Let's move forward.
Emergency?
Yeah.
Likewise, it's unanimous. Anything else come before finance?
No, sir.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.